For me to be able to talk about the new Joker movie, I'm going to need to talk about the first Joker movie and my relationship with it. It was a film I was extremely excited for when I first saw the trailer back in 2019, and when I say extremely excited, I mean it. I'd watch it on repeat for days. No kidding, I might have seen both the trailers of that movie over 200 times. But looking back on it now, I think it's because I hadn't seen anything like it back then. I mostly only used to watch Hindi movies and Hollywood blockbusters, primarily superhero movies. So, obviously, a movie about the clown prince of crime himself would entice me. And when I saw that trailer, everything changed. I might sound dramatic, but it really was a game changer for me. It was unlike anything I'd seen before, and yeah, sure, I hadn't seen many films back then, but this was a first for me. There were no flashy visual effects, no dull visuals, no world ending stakes, no cameos, nothing that we had come to expect from the usual superhero fare, and that captivated me. Maybe because I had internally started to grow tired of the sameness of these films, that something so different looked so interesting. Just the idea of a comic book film so character focused was so fascinating to me. I didn't care if the planet was going to end. Internal stakes are where it's at. It's what personally at stake that engages me. And there weren't many great superhero films that were this character focused. I mean, you have Superman, the Dark Knight trilogy, the Raimi Spider Man films, Mask of the Phantasm. But most of the MCU, the most popular cinematic franchise, started to shift its focus from telling character centric stories like the first Iron Man, the first Avenger, to focus on expanding its universe and introducing newer characters that I frankly didn't care about that much. So, to see a DC movie, especially after their not so successful runs before this, to attempt something so bold and ambitious was exciting to me. Watching Joker in theaters felt like a dream come true, and I had never found myself so absorbed by a movie made so differently from the ones I had seen. A film without a conventional plot. Instead, it's interested in showing the struggles of this one man and attempting to craft empathy towards this man. It's really unlike anything I had seen before. And from watching and reading many reviews and theories, I realized that Taxi Driver and King of Comedy were heavy inspirations for this film, which introduced me to the cinema of Martin Scorsese, who, in my opinion, is the greatest living filmmaker. From then on, I discovered the work of Tarantino, Paul Thomas Anderson, Stanley Kubrick, the greats. Joker was my introduction to the kind of cinema I'm in love with today. Now, how is the movie itself? Well, it's complicated. I obviously loved it when I first watched it. It captured my imagination and led me down a path that shaped my film journey. But I had heard several criticisms against it, making a point for why it wasn't that good of a film. Though I had understood these points, I hadn't necessarily agreed with them entirely, and it never hindered my love for the movie. I always felt that people were way too harsh on the film, though it legit made over $1 billion, which is absolutely bonkers considering how much of a creative risk it seemed like, and its budget being just around 70 million, which is insanely low for a comic book film. There's nothing unraveling at a super fast pace. Instead, we sit with every feeling, every emotion. It runs the risk of coming across as boring, especially to modern audiences whose attention span is that of a goldfish. But it's a creative decision that I respect, and honestly, one that I think benefits the film. When the sequel to the movie was announced, I wasn't extremely excited, but rather intrigued for the film. The title did sound a bit pretentious, but it had my attention. And after I watched the trailer, I rewatched the first film because I hadn't seen it for over 4 years, and I've seen hundreds and hundreds of films since then. My opinions and worldviews have drastically changed from back then, so I wanted to see where my thoughts on the film lie now. Do I still love it as much as I did back then? Well, it's not that simple. I don't think the film is bad or anywhere near it. I was captivated throughout its runtime, and the film did succeed in making me feel some level of empathy towards Arthur. The film is beautiful to look at, and Hilder's score is just haunting. But I found myself agreeing with a lot of the criticisms held against it in the reviews that I had read years earlier. A lot of the film just feels a little unbelievably try hard in its attempt to make us feel for Arthur. I just couldn't buy into it. Not very well, at least. It felt shallow. Even the score, though being great, was used in such a way that felt too on the nose. I mean, every time something bad would happen to Arthur, it would play this melodramatic piece of music that's really trying to sell the emotion of pity. And quite a bit of the dialogue was just not it.
And take it like good little boys, that we won't werewolf and go wild.
But still, despite these shortcomings, it was never an uninteresting watch. Joaquin Phoenix is simply outstanding, and I don't dislike it, but I don't love it as much as I used to, which I suppose is unfortunate, but it is what it is. And now we come to the upcoming film, Joker Folie, Deux. After having seen the trailer, I find myself incredibly intrigued by it. Maybe also because it looks refreshing compared to the superhero movies we are currently being subjected to. Very little comic book films have really resonated with me since the first Joker film. Most of it just has been the same visually bland shit that we have seen before, and Joker stands out from that crowd. These films aren't ugly and grey, there's actual creative use of color infused into every frame. There's no burden of fitting this into an expansive cinematic universe. And I suppose, as simple as it sounds, it just looks and feels like a real movie. There's an actual uncompromised vision behind this film, not lost under studio meddling. It seems like the creative integrity of this film is intact, that Todd Phillips got to make the movie he wanted. And even if the movie doesn't turn out to be so great, I really wish that this is how the remaining of these films are made, that feel like the singular vision of its director. Because when you do, you can get a Spider-Man 2 or the Batman. And apparently this film is also a musical? Like, what? It sounds like a completely absurd and ridiculous idea. Count me in. Because with the state of these comic book films today, I really respect when these films execute bigger creative ideas, when they're willing to swing for the fences. And it could completely fail, or it could work. Who knows? But it's the willingness to experiment and take chances that I feel is something these films really need. Not only is this film dripping with beauty in every frame, its primary reason for having me intrigued is similar to the first one. It's unlike anything I have seen, at least in a comic book movie. I have no idea what to expect, and no, I am not talking about the plot. Honestly, I could not care less about that. I have no idea what to expect in regards to the experience. And honestly, that's what's incredibly exciting to me. The curiosity and ambiguity I have towards this movie makes me want to watch it. It would be incredibly disappointing if the film isn't that good, because I really want it to be. But I'm not going to worry about that right now. As of now, I'm happy with the excitement I have for this film, and I'm going to live with that feeling until it releases on the 4th of October later this year. Thank you so much for watching this video.